Private Greg Carter stumbled through the smoke-filled corridor, coughing as alarms blared overhead. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out the muffled sounds of alien weapons firing in the distance. "This is fine," he muttered to himself, tripping over a severed tentacle. Totally under control. The plan had been simple. Infiltrate the alien warlord Krangzor's flagship, plant a few charges, and sneak out. But Greg didn't exactly plant the charges. He dropped one, tripped over another, and somehow activated the ship's self-destruct while looking for a coffee machine. Now the tyrannical leader of the Gorgoth Empire was dead. Vaporized. Turned into a fine dust coating Greg's slightly singed uniform. And now, this. Before him stood a towering alien official, draped in ceremonial robes that looked suspiciously like shower curtains. Its 6 eyes blinked in slow succession. By the laws of conquest, you must assume the marital contracts of the fallen warlord Krangzor. Greg blinked. Wait. Hold on. Marital contracts? A holographic scroll unfurled between them. Alien text flickered before translating into shaky English. Class 7, Section 3 ***. Upon defeat of the reigning warlord, the victor shall inherit all strategic marital alliances to maintain political unity. ***. Greg leaned in. Strategic marital alliances? You mean wives? I gotta marry this guy's wives. The official gave a slow, deliberate nod. 3 figures shimmered into view, projected as holograms. The first spoke with a voice like silk wrapping a blade. "I am Zanara, emissary of the Vothian clans. I look forward to negotiating our arrangement." Greg swallowed hard. Zanara was serpentine, with silver scales catching the light, her eyes glinting with mischief or maybe hunger. The second barely spared him a glance. Gralak. Commander of the Iron Brood. Her massive frame was encased in scarred armor, tusks protruding from a scowling face. She looked like she could snap Greg in half just by thinking about it. The third beamed. Literally. Her skin glowed faintly blue. Veliki. Scientist, innovator, and now, wife. Oh, this will be fascinating. I have so many tests, questions. Questions. I meant questions. Greg stared, mouth slightly open. Zanara smirked. Speechless already. How charming. Gralak growled. He's small. Weak. I could break him. Veliki clapped excitedly. Oh. Can I watch? Greg held up both hands. Okay, let's pump the brakes. I'm not exactly husband material. I burn toast. I forget birthdays. And I have commitment issues. The official didn't blink. The law is binding. Zanara coiled closer, her holographic form flickering. Refusing would dishonor Krangzor's legacy. It would destabilize the empire. Civil war. Bloodshed. Economic collapse. Gralak cracked her knuckles. And I would personally end you. Veliki leaned in, eyes wide. But think of the possibilities. Cross-species behavioral studies, reproductive analysis. Greg paled. Nope. Nope. Not doing that. Not analyzing anything. Zanara's smirk deepened. We have customs, human. Rituals. Duties. The official coughed. Ahem. Your first duty as husband is to partake in the binding ceremony. Immediately. Greg exhaled slowly. Okay. Fine. Binding ceremony. That doesn't sound too bad. What's that? Like, exchanging vows or something? Veliki giggled. Oh, no. It's a debate. Greg blinked. A what? Zanara leaned closer. A mating debate. Verbal sparring. Points awarded for dominance. Gralak snorted. First to make the other submit wins. Greg's mouth went dry. You mean I gotta argue my way into marriage? Zanara's grin widened. Exactly. Veliki hummed. And after that, the nutrient bath. Greg stiffened. What is with you people and baths? The official cleared its throat. The nutrient bath is a sacred tradition, symbolizing unity. You will enter the vat together. Zanara purred. Skin to scale. Flesh to armor. Veliki bounced. And it's mildly corrosive. But only to dead skin. Mostly. Greg stared. You're kidding. Silence. He groaned. Of course, you're not. Moments later, Greg stood on a platform overlooking a steaming pool of viscous, greenish-blue liquid. The scent was unsettling. Like old gym socks soaked in mint. Zanara was already submerged to her waist, lounging like a queen. Gralak stomped in without hesitation, causing a tidal wave. Veliki splashed playfully, sending droplets hissing onto the metal floor. Greg hesitated. Zanara's voice floated up. Second thoughts? Gralak growled. Coward. Veliki giggled. It's only mildly toxic. Greg muttered to himself, this is fine. Totally under control. He stepped in. The liquid clung to his skin, tingling uncomfortably. Zanara smirked. Welcome to marriage. Gralak cracked her neck. You survive this, maybe you're worth keeping. Veliki leaned closer, eyes bright. Ooh. You're turning pink. Is that a mating display? Greg sighed. No. It's called embarrassment. Veliki tilted her head. Fascinating. Greg leaned back, letting the goose soak into his clothes. So, what happens now? Zanara's smirk turned wicked. Now? We consummate the debate. Greg groaned, sinking deeper into the muck. Someone shoot me. Greg adjusted the stiff ceremonial collar choking his neck. The alien palace loomed around him, all sharp angles and glowing glyphs that made his head hurt if he stared too long. Zanara slithered beside him, her silver scales glimmering. Stand up straight. You look like a prey animal. I am a prey animal, Greg muttered. Gralak stomped past, armor clanking. If you embarrass me in front of the War Council, I'll crush your fragile bones. Veliki trailed behind, nose buried in a glowing tablet. Technically, human bones can withstand up to. Veliki. Greg snapped. She blinked. Oh, sorry. I'll wait until after the ceremony to measure your skeletal resilience. Greg groaned. They entered the Grand Convergence Hall, packed with alien dignitaries hissing and muttering. Above them, a banner unfurled, translating to, Welcome to the Union of Flesh and Politics. Asterisk. Greg squinted. Is that supposed to be romantic? Zanara's tail flicked. It's literal. At the center stood a towering alien officiant, holding what looked like a ceremonial meat cleaver. The binding of houses shall commence, it bellowed. Greg leaned toward Zanara. This isn't going to involve blood, right? Not yours. Before Greg could react, he was shoved toward a stone pedestal where the debate would take place. Zanara slithered to his side. Remember, dominance is key. If you submit, you dishonor us all. No pressure, Greg muttered. The officiant raised a clawed hand. Begin. Zanara struck first. Our union strengthens the fractured clans. Opposition is foolish. A rival diplomat sneered. And yet you bind yourself to a human? A creature driven by base instincts and weakness? Greg raised a hand. Hey, I resent that. I have layers of weakness. Laughter rippled through the hall. Zanara's eyes glittered. He jests, but even the simplest weapons can be effective. Greg smirked. Yeah, and I'm very effective. Veliki giggled in the background. The rival's sneer deepened. A human can't lead. He's untested. Greg shrugged. Untested, sure. But I've got a perfect record, 0 defeats. Gasps. Zanara's smirk deepened. Growlithe cracked her knuckles. He makes a point. The officiant grunted. Argument stands. The rival fumed but backed down. Zanara leaned in. Not terrible, human. Gee, thanks. High praise from the murder snake. Minutes later, Greg was led away from the pedestal, sweat beading on his forehead. Was that it? He asked. Valiki clapped. Not even close. Now comes the nutrient bath. Greg groaned. Again with the bath? Zanara coiled closer. This one is more intimate. Growlithe smirked. Prepare yourself. They led Greg to a massive chamber where a thick, bubbling pool awaited. The air reeked of sulfur and something disturbingly sweet. Strip, Zanara commanded. Greg coughed. Excuse me? It's tradition. Valiki beamed. Skin contact enhances the bonding enzymes. Greg turned beet red. Isn't there a waiver I can sign instead? Growlithe crossed her arms. Coward. Muttering curses, Greg peeled off his ceremonial robes and waded into the goo. It was warm. Too warm. Like being hugged by a sweaty octopus. Zanara slid in beside him, unbothered. Valiki splashed happily. Growlithe grunted but joined. Zanara smirked. Now, we must exchange secrets. Greg blinked. Secrets? A sign of trust, Valiki chirped. Greg sighed. Fine. I once ate an entire cake meant for my squad because I was stressed. Valiki gasped. Emotional eating. Fascinating. Growlithe rolled her eyes. Weak. Zanara's eyes narrowed. And yet he won. Greg smirked. Your turn. Zanara leaned in. I poisoned Krangzor's wine for years. He never noticed. Greg's eyes widened. Growlithe snorted. I challenged Krangzor to single combat once. He had me in prison for a week. Valiki hummed. I accidentally released a pheromone cloud that caused an entire diplomatic summit to devolve into an orgy. Greg slowly turned to Valiki. Accidentally? Valiki just smiled. Zanara chuckled. Welcome to the family, husband. Greg groaned, sinking deeper into the goo. Greg sat uncomfortably on an alien throne that felt more like a torture device than a seat of power. The jagged metal edges poked at awkward angles, making it impossible to relax. Before him, holographic displays of star systems blinked with trade routes and military movements, all demanding his attention. Zanara leaned casually against the throne, studying him with predatory amusement. You're the warlord now. Act like it. Greg sighed. I didn't sign up for this. I'm a corporal, not a galactic diplomat. Growlithe stomped forward, arms crossed. Weakness invites challenge. Already, lesser houses plot to overthrow you. Great, Greg muttered. And how do we stop that? By crushing them, Growlithe growled. Valiki piped up from the corner, fiddling with some device that emitted unsettling sparks. Or we could negotiate. Greg perked up. Yes. That. Negotiation sounds good. Zanara's eyes glinted. Negotiation, in our culture, involves proving superiority. Through action. Greg groaned. Of course it does. A hologram blinked to life, projecting a furious, multi-eyed alien warlord. The House of Skarn refuses to acknowledge a human as ruler. I demand trial by combat. Greg paled. Combat? No, I... Zanara cut him off smoothly. The warlord accepts. Greg spun toward her. I absolutely do not. Growlithe slammed a fist into her palm. Victory means dominance. Refusal means death. Greg ran a hand down his face. Why is everything here life or death? Valiki tilted her head. Efficient conflict resolution? Moments later, Greg found himself standing on a stone platform in a coliseum surrounded by thousands of roaring aliens. Across from him, the Challenger, a hulking beast with claws like swords, snarled. Greg turned to Zanara, who lounged at the edge. Any advice? Don't die. Helpful. The beast charged, and Greg barely rolled aside, landing hard. His weapon, a ceremonial blade heavier than he could lift, clattered away. Perfect, he muttered. The beast lunged again, but Greg grabbed a loose stone and chucked it. It bounced harmlessly off the monster's chest. Greg winced. Yeah, that'll do it. Then he noticed something. Above the beast, large decorative chains dangled, supporting spiked ornaments. Greg sprinted toward a pillar, scrambling up awkwardly as the beast roared behind him. What's he doing? Growlithe growled. Zanara's eyes narrowed. Improvising. Greg reached the top, grabbed the nearest chain, and swung. He collided awkwardly with the beast, sending them both crashing into the ground. The spiked ornament above groaned, then snapped free, smashing down onto the Challenger. Silence. Then, cheers erupted. Greg coughed, staggering to his feet. Was that dominance enough? Zanara smirked. Barely. But effective. Growlithe chuckled. Maybe you're not entirely useless. Veliki clapped. Oh! That was so fascinating. Kinetic combat through improvised physics. Greg groaned. I need a drink. But there was no time. Later, Greg stood before a vast table littered with alien delicacies that looked more like weapons than food. Zanara elegantly plucked something wriggling off a platter. A feast to celebrate your victory. Greg eyed the moving food. Pass. Veliki nudged a dish toward him. This one's only mildly venomous. Greg pushed it away. Nope. Growlithe grabbed a slab of meat and tore into it. Eating with us shows strength. Greg sighed. Fine. He picked up a small, spiny fruit and bit down. It exploded. Juice splattered across his face, stinging his eyes. Veliki clapped. Oh! That's the defense mechanism. Fascinating. Greg coughed, wiping his face. I hate this planet. Zanara chuckled. You'll adjust. A messenger hurried in, panting. Warlord. Another house challenges your claim. Greg groaned. Again? Can't they just send a fruit basket like normal people? Zanara smirked. You're making an impression. Greg slumped in his throne. Great. Just what I wanted. Veliki leaned forward eagerly. Maybe this time it'll be a puzzle challenge. Or chemical warfare. Greg stared. What is wrong with all of you? Growlithe grinned. Welcome to marriage. Greg buried his face in his hands. Greg paced back and forth in the dimly lit war chamber, holographic star maps flickering all around him. His head throbbed. Every blinking light represented another alien faction either watching, waiting, or plotting his downfall. He rubbed his temples. This is insane. I'm a grunt, not a galactic warlord, he muttered. Zanara, lounging on a throne-like chair, watched him with thinly veiled amusement. Yet here you are. Warlord. Husband. Target. Yeah, thanks for the pep talk. Growlithe slammed a gauntlet fist onto the table, rattling the holograms. Enough whining. Another assassination attempt is coming. We must be ready. Greg froze. Another? How many have there been this week? 4, Veliki chirped, eyes glowing as she tinkered with a small device. Technically 5, if you count the self-destructing bouquet. Greg blinked. Who the hell sends exploding flowers? Zanara's tail flicked lazily. The House of Rel. They value creativity in murder. Greg groaned. I can't keep dodging knives and poison fruit. There's gotta be a smarter way to handle this. Veliki grinned. Oh. We could fake your death. Classic strategy. Gralek snorted. Cowardly. Greg held up his hands. Let's not start killing me off just yet. We need a solution that doesn't involve me getting stabbed, shot, or bathed in acid. Zanara leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Then it's time to send a message. Greg hesitated. What kind of message? Zanara smirked. A public one. Moments later, Greg stood on a massive balcony overlooking thousands of alien spectators. The air vibrated with tension. Beside him, Zanara, Gralek, and Veliki radiated menace, or in Veliki's case, awkward enthusiasm. Greg took a breath. All right, listen up. The crowd fell into a hush. I get it. You all think I'm weak. Soft. A joke. But here's the thing, you're right. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Greg continued, voice rising. I'm human. We're squishy, we bleed too easily, and we're pretty bad at politics. But we're also stubborn. And lucky. Really, really lucky. A pause. And let me tell you something about humans, when we get backed into a corner, we get creative. You think I wanted to marry 3 alien wives and run an empire I don't understand? Hell no. But I'm here. And if you think you can scare me off, go ahead and try. But I promise you, I won't go down easy. He pointed at the crowd. You want to fight me? Fine. But don't think I'll fight fair. Silence stretched. Then, to Greg's shock, a slow, deliberate cheer began to rise. Gralek chuckled darkly. You may survive this yet. Zanara smirked. Bold words. You might make a warlord after all. Veliki clapped. Inspiring. And only a little threatening. Greg exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders. But his moment of relief was cut short by the sharp hiss of blasters charging. From the shadows, a squad of armored assassins emerged, weapons aimed. Greg's heart stopped. Really? Right now? Zanara's smile sharpened. Handle it, husband. Greg scanned the balcony. Too exposed. Nowhere to run. Veliki tugged on his sleeve, holding out the device she'd been tinkering with. Press this. He didn't ask. He just slammed his hand down. A pulse erupted from the device, sending the assassin's weapons sparking and failing. Greg blinked. EMP? Veliki beamed. Localized energy disruption. Patent pending. Gralek roared, charging forward and smashing through the disoriented assassins. Zanara struck with terrifying precision, her movements like liquid steel. Greg ducked as a stray blade whizzed past his head. Remind me to thank you later, he shouted to Veliki. You're welcome, she chirped. The crowd, witnessing the brutal takedown, erupted into deafening cheers. Panting, Greg stood over the defeated attackers. Zanara wiped blood from her blade. That was your message. Gralek sneered at the fallen assassins. Let them send more. Greg looked out over the roaring crowd. I think they got the point. Veliki giggled. Oh, definitely. Later, back in the war chamber, Greg slumped into his uncomfortable throne. I can't keep doing this, he mumbled. Zanara poured him a glass of something that smelled like burning metal. You will. Or you'll die trying. Greg took a sip. It burned all the way down. Gralek leaned in. Or we'll kill you ourselves if you embarrass us. Veliki tilted her head. Statistically, you're more likely to die from stress-related cardiac arrest first. Greg stared blankly. Comforting. He leaned back, letting the weight of everything settle. I need a plan. A real one. No more waiting for knives in the dark. Zanara smiled slowly. Good. Now you're thinking like a warlord. Greg sighed. Yeah. A warlord with 3 wives and 100 enemies. Veliki's eyes sparkled. Ooh. I could build you a battle suit. Growlette grunted. Or sharpen him up with combat drills. Zanara purred, or we could teach him how to manipulate. Greg groaned. Or I could just fake my own death after all. The three of them laughed. But Greg wasn't sure if they thought he was joking.